Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised with Reaper. Being a Pro Tools boy for so long, this is actually pretty cool. That's sad. I might have to switch. This might have been a mistake. Grab me. Grab me. It likes you. That's fine. I'll just stand where you are. Hey everybody, Resident Loser Jeremy here. I've got John from Better Drummer. We're gonna take a look at getting your sound for your videos as good as possible, because you don't even really use a DAW in the normal sense.
Yeah.
So what I have done, in the interest of keeping things as cheap or as free as possible, I downloaded Reaper. So describe what you do on your channel real quick for us.
So on Better Drummer, I like to try to have entertaining stuff and also some educational stuff for people wanting to learn drums.
So when I think about how to set that up from a stand, like, you don't need studio sound for that.
Mostly just a pretty natural drum sound, but a clear sound.
Yeah,
like
so there's definitely certain things I'm gonna do different from the get-go, but if we can keep it within Reaper, which is something accessible, so you don't have to buy a whole lot of different stuff to make it work, you don't have to buy a lot of plugins to make it work, let's see what we can do. We're not gonna be in Pro Tools, because Pro Tools is expensive, not conducive to what you're doing, so we're going to Reaper. Woo. My first time.
That's what she said.
Actually, my second time. I kind of checked this out before you got here to make sure this wouldn't be a total train wreck.
Right.
But it's really pretty cool as far as, like, I can't believe something like this is free. And the things you can do with just the tools that are already built into it are pretty darn impressive. First off, I'm gonna try to pull in here our audio file. Let's see how, oh, it just adds a track. That's pretty sweet. Offline, why are you offline? It's not offline, okay. So what would have caused that? That's the difference between Pro Tools and Reaper. So you have to tell Pro Tools if you're gonna change the tempo that you want the audio to change with it. Looks like that just happens in Reaper. We're not gonna mess with it. So make sure you get your tempo set first
before you put, yeah. That's very good to know.
Okay. So, hey, now we're on. A cool thing that I learned in Reaper, like in Pro Tools, you have to tell it exactly what you want to do. Do you want to make an audio track, a folder track, a master? With this, like, you have your route buttons right here. So I have everything going to the drum bus. So to do that, all I did was select everything I wanted to go to the bus. Mm-hmm. Grab the route button and drag it to the track.
Oh.
So if we want to make a track, let's go up here, insert new track. Where did it go? Number 2. That doesn't really make sense, but okay. This is my first time using Reaper. So we're gonna name, this is just gonna be our master, hopefully. So setting a master, if we want to get everything to the master, like right now if I mute this, it shouldn't do. Now why is it doing that? Interesting. Oh, wait, what? That can't be right. It's looping? Interesting. You know what? Let's, can't quite figure out how...
Oh, were they just not?
Okay. Be smarter than Reaper. We're gonna figure this out.
This is how it goes. Learning a new software.
Everyone has quirks. I'm sure I'm just using it wrong.
Yeah.
So let's see. Can we just drop this right here and then push it to the front? Did that? Okay, so everything is being routed to So if I want these two things to hit the master, I hold shift, drag their route to the master. Everything is going to a master folder. That's probably more for me than anything, just because I'm used to it hitting a master. That may not be necessary with Reaper, but I need this to be comfortable.
Yes.
So, but the cool part is you can see your buses up here. Like you can see what's going where. Like I have the kicks going to like a couple different reverbs that I set up.
I see.
Everything's going to the drum bus. The drum bus ends right here. And then I have the track, and those two things are being sent to the master. If we select all this stuff, we'll get rid of the verbs for right now. But if we just select your drums and turn off everything I've got going on here, including the drum bus. So this is your raw drum sound in your... Not bad.
No.
Not bad, but it's, I mean, there could be improvements here. And I'm going to bypass verb. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, so now everything in orange, unless I just completely misunderstand it, is bypassed. And these tracks over here, I have like a studio, let's call it like studio verb, just so it makes a little more sense. This is like distortion, and this is a room verb, not to be confused with your room mic.
Gotcha. And
then I have like my normal verb, which we can kind of look at changing. So if we take a look at just the kick first off, let's see if we can kind of go up here and take a look at the actual track here. So I can see the kick is, I'm looking at Polarity right now, and you can kind of see it more clearly on the snare. So right here, you see how it's going down first. Yeah. So what I want to do with this is flip the polarity of the snare. The thinking here, as long as I have everything going in one direction, it's going to be fine. But polarity on something is just going to tell you, is the speaker moving out or in? So if everything's going the same direction, the speaker's not fighting against itself and trying to go in and out at the same time.
Gotcha.
There's definitely argument over, should it be positive, should it be negative? I don't think it matters as long as you're consistent. So I'm going to flip the phase on the snare, and that button is down there.
Okay.
So let's just really quickly look through here.
So you're trying to make sure everything starts up?
Yeah, like as if everything in the studio here is hooked up correctly. If I have a positive polarity on something, it's going to push the speaker towards me and move air towards me.
Yeah.
So even though you're hitting a drum and the drum is technically going away from you, from a listener standpoint, that air blast is coming towards them.
That makes sense.
So kind of trying to recreate like a drum set live, I suppose.
Yeah.
So Tom 3 looks backwards. And I lost my... Oh, big enough so where I can see the polarity buttons. Okay. Let's find another hit. Snare, we already got that. Tom 2 is reversed. And you can see on the overheads here, it's small, but you can see the overheads are going up.
Yeah.
So that's telling me, like, if our tom is going down, like a negative polarity, and our overhead's up, that's already going to, like, kind of fight against itself. So I'm just going to go ahead and say tom 1 is out, but we will check.
I surely hit it at some point.
There's one. Okay, he's down. One thing I don't understand is how it sets up, like, what track is stereo and what is not. I'm not noticing anything different here, but... So we should be able to tell a difference. Like, we've already kind of got a punchier set with just flipping those. Like more low end, more body. So that's going to help us right off the bat, just making sure everything's kind of aligned that way. depending on the interface you have, once you have like your general setup and stuff doesn't change, you could actually go to the preamp and flip the phase. Like I have those here. Like you can see I'm flipping phase like on some of these things.
Oh, I see.
So I'm not doing it in Pro Tools necessarily. Like part of when we were doing sound check with you, I was making sure those things were done and flipping them at the preamp level so I don't have to worry about it later. But either one works. It's going to do the same thing. So on the kick here, the way this stuff kind of works, you can click on effects and it pulls up like a little window for you. Those of you using Reaper, it's my first time. So you can turn them on and off with these little checkboxes here. And I'm trying to stay within totally free plugins. Like if I go to add here, there's a whole lot of stuff I can pick from. But it's also knowing, it knows I have a ton of plugins on my computer too. Yeah. So I'm trying to stay with what you load up Reaper with, minus a couple things that you might go get, but in one case it's totally free and in the other it's $10. So total $10. Very
reasonable.
So if we look at this first gate, the Ria Gate, it seems like everything Ria is Reaper. So I don't know what that means, but whatever. But I just kind of played around with the gate a little bit and got a nice tight sound. So it's not overly aggressive, and I'm actually kind of mixing some of that dry back in. So it's just kind of controlling like that small room thing. Like you have your other drums bouncing off the wall, coming back, and it's just trying to mitigate that a little bit. EQ, I do this with like almost every kick ever, like dipping the low mids, just to kind of give it that scoop. And I mean, it might be a little aggressive, but in that case, like you could kind of pull it back a little bit. I actually kind of like that a little better.
Yeah.
Not so aggressive, but it's kind of getting rid of that low mud in there. And there's ever so slightly a bump on the top end, which you could probably do without, but adds that presence back.
Yeah.
Like, and I'm thinking, like, in an educational context, they want to be able to hear it, but I don't want it to sound like overly processed.
Right. Yeah, you want that clear attack.
I have a comp, like a compressor, just trying to even it out. And I just pulled up a preset for that.
Oh, yeah.
I might have tweaked it a little bit, but not much. Like, these are things you could probably, with dialing them in, and the more comfortable you get with this, like, you could adapt this any way you want. But literally that gate, I kind of did the exact same thing with everything. On the snare, had just, again, like a stock thing that I just kind of adapted to a snare gate. It's definitely a little tighter, but I kind of like that with a little more dry blended in, actually.
Yeah.
But that's just kind of helping that attack pop out a little more, but it's not totally neutering it to the point where if I get rid of this dry, like... You see what I mean?
Yeah, it's just like a little jarring.
Right. But that's also the mark of a pretty good gate. Like, I'm just kind of surprised with the built-in quality of this gate. And they copied that over to the toms. So let's listen to a section with the toms. And that's just with gating them. Like, if I turn those gates off...
yeah,
I can kind of take or leave those, honestly. If you want that kind of control, you've got it. But I'm going to go ahead and adjust the dry up on these, actually. So it is gating, but it's not going crazy with it. Starting on EQ with the snare. Just adding low end here, and this looks crazy just because of the scale, but like +6, -6, those aren't insane numbers to be shooting for here. And I'm kind of boosting the fundamental down here with this fundamental on that snare in particular was pretty low. So this is something you could play with. Like if you have a higher tuned snare, you can kind of move this up.
Okay.
If you wanted to. And then I just have a really gentle like top end boost. That's just kind of helping it pop out a little bit. Okay. Like, the thing is to go for, like, subtle moves here to not make it sound like crazy hyper-focused. On the toms, looks like all I did was a low cut. Yeah, just to kind of get rid of mud, and honestly, that could probably be a little higher. And that's just to get rid of, like, crazy rumble or stuff like that. Overheads, I just cut a little bit of weirdness out in there. Other than that, I'm not doing anything to them. So if we add those into the mix. So then we get rid of those EQs, and a lot of that low end comes back, but we don't need that low end. So it's just kind of a way to shine those things up and let them pop out without affecting the kick drum or the low fundamental of the snare. On top of that, your room mic was the cool thing that I had fun with. And let's go ahead and like turn every other solo off here.
That surprised me. I had no idea that would.
So right off the bat, I'm just cutting low end again because I don't want it to get muddy. I found this clipper in here, which a clipper you can think about just an insanely aggressive compressor. It's literally chopping the tops off of transients if it gets above a certain point. So the point of this one is to get gross. And I added a drum comp. That's the thing with Reaper. It is free. Some of these things are hard to read, and that's probably just because I'm not used to this world here. But we are getting gain reduction. It is compressing, and I just want it to pump. Like something to create that pump for us. So if we listen to all these close mics together, as opposed to like, I hope we're not going too far in a certain like direction where they sound unnatural.
No, it sounds a lot more full. You still want the sound to be enjoyable to listen to. You just want it to be clear.
Yeah, and I hope it still sounds like your drums.
Yeah,
being played, because I feel like I've seen some educational channels where they'll just put samples on top of something.
Yeah,
it's like, well, if you're teaching someone to play with a sound that they could never possibly achieve, like,
yeah, that's not fair. Yeah, exactly. And it also, from an educational side, it doesn't help to like showcase how hitting it slightly differently gives it a little different sound. Like, you want to be able to also teach some of that nuance that you don't get when you just throw samples over it.
Oh, yeah. Past that, I'm just adding, like, different reverbs and distortions here. And that's just for, like, attitude. So I tried to do what I normally do with the snare with a built-in Reaper thing, and I'm not digging it. So there is a plugin. I wonder if it picked it up. Ah, it didn't. Oh, bummer. That's okay. It's pretty close. Verbiage. If you could get that in here, it's pretty sweet.
Okay.
Like, I kind of had it turned off because for this, it's not that cool. But if you were really getting it on a sound,
yeah,
you could have a kind of affected snare thing. With this reverb here, this room verb, again, it's just the Reaper verb. I don't know much about it, but I just kind of played with it until it kind of sounded like a room. So it's kind of giving space and width to the kit.
Yeah.
Not trying to change too much. And then I called like a studio verb. I don't know. So this one I have starting later, like it's starting after the original hit. So trying to like recreate what I'm doing with room mics here that are far away from the kit.
Oh, okay.
Just trying to give some space. But again, these are things you can literally turn down, you know?
Yeah.
But I think the room verb is going to be like the most useful for you most of the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have a distortion track here just for fun. All that's going to do is like accentuate the attack of certain hits. And again, it's kind of like one of those blend to taste things.
Sure.
Past that, I added rich drums. This is a $10 plugin, and it's kind of like the finisher. So on top of the track,
yeah. That sounds pretty good for free.
I know. Well, $10.
Well, sorry, $10. It sounds pretty good for $10 too.
And Reaper should, just like any other DAW, as long as you have drivers installed the way, like, I don't know, are you Mac or PC?
PC.
So yeah, you would, if you've got the proper drivers installed, Reaper should see whatever interface you're plugging into it. So if when you're recording, you would just change your inputs here to whatever your record input would be, and you could record directly into Reaper. You could use something like a Soundflower to reroute stuff through Reaper if you wanted to, and everything could print as you're playing. Because if you can keep your hardware buffer low enough to where you don't notice any latency as this rolls, and there's no heavy lifting plugins here, then you could technically do everything live with this kind of sound coming back at you. So
that'd be very cool. Actually, yeah, that'd be really cool for like giving live lessons online. That would be perfect.
Yeah, and you could set it up through any kind of FaceTime too if you wanted to, and have this sound through whatever.
That is exactly the kind of thing that I've actually toyed with and tried to figure out before.
Well, killer.
Yeah.
I'm kind of surprised with Reaper. Being a Pro Tools boy for so long, this is actually pretty cool. Oh, it's sad. I might have to switch. This might have been a mistake.